Hello, my name is James Childs, and I'm a consultant in diversity and inclusion, among a lot of other organizational development areas. But diversity and inclusion has been where I've spent most of my time over the last 15 or 16 years of doing this work. And my work really started as a participant in a diversity course that I was going to, honestly, quite unwillingly. I think that as I sat there, I remember thinking, well, this course is diversity. I'm a black guy. Well, why do I need to know this? Don't I have everything I need to know about what it means to grow up in a diverse society as a black guy? Well, that day, which was a full-day workshop, I remember being so very challenged by the fact that I started discovering things that were in my head, things that I had thought about other people who maybe even looked like me, that I assumed about them, things that I picked up in ways that were probably incidental, maybe from my parents or from church or from school or from television or books. And I started realizing that, wow, this was a really interesting subject, because I began to realize at that point that there were things in my life that I had not really thought about and certainly hadn't thought through, yet they were having impact in what I did on a very daily basis. But fast forwarding to the work that I do now, those years of that trek for me, that journey for me started there, and I'm still on the journey. And so I do a lot of work with diversity and inclusion in many, many different arenas, from schools with children from kindergarten through 12th grade, and in colleges and community center, churches, police departments, DA offices, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies. I've traveled outside the United States to work with people, because this idea of diversity and inclusion really is a people thing. And when I say diversity, I really talk about the many ways that we're different from each other. Everyone is included in diversity. Whether you're black or white, male or female, you're included, because diversity talks about the ways that we're different. These may be everything from the color of our skin to our ethnicity. It may talk about the color of our hair or our birth order. It may be our sexual orientation or where we grew up. All those things are things that make us different, and they may be things you were born with. They could be things that you've chosen to do or experiences that you have. All of them contribute to the diversity that is you. So everyone is included when we talk about diversity, and diversity simply is a fact of life. Even in the situations where it seems that the crowd is homogeneous, any group of people may be the same in some ways, but it's interesting how there still is a lot of diversity even when there may be homogeneity present. I say that because diversity is not the only thing we need to talk about. I talked about being a diversity and inclusion consultant, because diversity and inclusion must go hand in hand. Inclusion really talks about, what do we do with the people who are different? How does that group of people who represent such diversity, how do they work together effectively to get done what they need to get done? You know, if you've got a ball team, a baseball team, for example, everyone can't be a home run hitter because you won't have anybody on base to knock in. If you're cooking a meal and you've got a group of chefs that are together, everyone can't be the person that creates the entree because you won't have hors d'oeuvres or desserts. Well, in a similar way, as we're in a team, we've got to figure out, how do we take the diversity and leverage it so that we as a team are most effective? And that's the work that I do. And the perspective that I have as I do the work is, as I don't really feel that I'm necessarily above anyone, and I certainly am not. I'm on the same journey, so I often am learning as I'm working with people about my own things that pop up incidentally, or that pop up when someone walks into the room. And I try to work with people, as I'm working with myself, to help manage the biases that I have. I believe that everyone walks into any situation with a number of biases that come from a number of places. And I'm not really so concerned about where they come from, but that they in fact reside in us. We don't have to play the blame game. We could do that, and we can do it for a long time. You can sit on the couch of a psychiatrist and talk about what mom did or what your teacher did. But all those things really don't matter as much as being aware that the biases exist. And when we start realizing that we are biased, and again, I'm not saying that you're bad, but we are biased. I'm not saying that that is something that we can't get through, but recognizing that we are biased, and that those biases sometimes may even be unconscious, allows us to have, I think, a respect for the subject matter that says there are times when I may not be aware. And not being aware may necessitate that we have an external source or a third person to kind of help us to identify where those biases may be creeping up. That's the work that I do. And my hope is, as we begin to do work with people and begin to look at how we can stoke and heighten our awareness, that people will look at regular situations in their life and start seeing how diversity might be playing a part and how they might be able to behave in a different way that can be inclusive. I use the word behaviors because, quite honestly, this is not just about gaining knowledge about a subject matter called diversity and inclusion, but it's about how do we take that knowledge and an understanding, really apply it to everyday situations to create effective and really teams that really do well and leverage the diversity that's there. And so we really look at how do we make behavioral changes. And I think that that's really important because inclusion says that people will feel engaged. People will feel part of the team. People will, because of their differences, be looked at as persons that really are key and integral to people and the team being successful. And when we can look at that and realize that we represent particular diversity, then I think it allows us to be able to explore this idea of diversity and inclusion in a way that allows us to be introspective and then that will change our behaviors. I think as I think about the biases that we've grown up with and the things that we've experienced that actually color or tint the glasses through which we look at life, I believe that we can be aware of those in such a way that we can actually maybe mitigate some of the negative aspects of it and really accentuate some of the positive things. There are many things that we've gone through that can really help a team. It can help others who we work with. And I believe as we look at those things and become very, very conscious of those things, I believe it can really help us to work together in a more effective way. Diversity and inclusion for me is something that I try to live every day. I realize that I still, even though I do this work probably more than most, think about this subject matter more than the average person, I still find myself sometimes making some faux pas, sometimes making mistakes. And I realize that when I put my foot in my mouth, what my experience, I think, allows me to do is maybe more gracefully take it out. But that's it. I mean, I still do that, and I still often will have times where I realize that my biases are coming up, and the fact that I haven't thought through some diversity issues really does bite me. So I really think that what we've got to do is try to figure out, in the classes that we do and in the work that I do, how can we make sure that people, one, understand who they are, and again, it's not a blame game, it's not about assigning or indicting anyone, but it's about being aware of what's resident in us and how those things that are resident in us may pop up at any given time and impact the situation. Once we begin to do that, we can then, again, put into place some behavioral changes that can really, I think, impact the team. I'm looking forward to the work that we're going to do in the future, and I'm looking forward to how I might be able to impact more and more people with this idea that diversity and inclusion truly do matter.